Hello, hello. So I've read Bastian's overview for the CVE-2025-22442 sideloading APKs into the work profile during the provisioning flow, the setup of the work profile. And I thought I'd give it a go myself. I wanted to see for myself the behavior and maybe dive a little bit deeper into how it's working, if there are any ramifications or any ways to protect organizations out of the box today that maybe aren't shown in the demo video that Bastian did himself. So, two devices. The first one is a Pixel 9 Pro XL. It's running a beta of Android 16, so it's as patched pretty much as it's going to be. And if I go now and create a work profile, go to Google Services, All Services, and down by here we can set up the work profile. I click Next on there, and while that does its thing, I'm also going to bring this in and initiate the script that I put together to do something similar, presumably, because I didn't see it shared, but presumably the same script Bastian's using. So that's waiting for a work profile to show up. And now I'll scan the handy QR code. That should take this device into my enterprise. So I'm going to accept and continue, and we can see that the work profile has been detected and sideloading is initiated. And you can see for Android 16 and presumably 15 once it's patched in, you're getting, or I'm getting, security exceptions. So it's not possible at this point to sideload APKs into the work profile during the provisioning step. Now if I go through the motions and carry on with enrollment, we'll see when it does finish in a few minutes. Okay, we can ignore that. Pop up here, and we can see that there's no additional applications within the work profile. I've only configured one app, Lookout, just as Bastian's example, and you can see it pop up there. No other applications in there. That was blocked, not possible. Now, if I switch over to another device, this is another device running Android 12, I believe. We can validate that very quickly. It's certainly not going to be newer than 12 as far as I know. There we go, yeah, Android 12. So this isn't within Bastian's overview as devices that are going to be patched. So 13, 14 and 15, obviously 16 by default. So this should be replicable. So if I go now to Google, wherever Google may be, because it changes seemingly on every Android version, head down and set up the work profile. Cool, so I'll scan this if it wants to take. And I'll also see if I can bring back the terminal. There we go. So I haven't initiated work profile setup just yet. I'm going to start this off. And that's going to wait for that to go. And off we go. Now, unlike Android 16, we're seeing success. Certainly thinking about it. There we go. So I'll carry on with the work profile setup. Okay. Super. So if we pop over to here and look at work apps, you can see there's at least one additional application. Oh, there we go. There's the second. So these have been preloaded in. Looks like the third got blocked as this was. Oh, that's a great example of what work policy does. So happy days. It installed two of the three apps I pushed during the provisioning process, and you could see This is where Bastian's video ended, right? So it showed that the applications were there, and in theory you could forever infiltrate apps, data, what have you, within the work profile, as if there was no way to get around it and no way to detect it. So, in the interest of expediency, I'm going to initiate a forced sync of policy from the device itself. This happens at least once a day, typically with the Android Management API. May not apply to legacy EMMs using Play EMM API, so no qualms with the claims made in that regard. But for EMMs that are using a MAPI, which are increasingly, particularly around work profile, becoming increasingly more common. So we've got SOTI, Omnissa, and a bunch of newer EMMs already having support for that out of the box. Those using a MAPI with the work profile Google Play policy set to allow list, which is typically default, right? You don't want to give end users access to the full Google Play Store out of the box, typically in that enterprise environment on the personal device. So under that scenario, if a device, oh, well, there we go. So if a device syncs with a MAPI will detect that packages that match or don't match those that are deployed from policy are installed and automatically remove it. Now, unfortunately, you didn't see that there and then. The screen turned off. I didn't do anything, though. You can see I'm still here. The mouse hasn't moved. This device is synced back in with a MAPI to say, hey, I'm alive. Here we go. Here's the policy I've got. The MAPI's gone. You've got applications that don't match what I expect, and remove them. So in terms of a viable ongoing threat, as you can see, within minutes those potentially malicious apps were removed before they could steal potentially any data, right? Because me as a user have barely even set anything up. I may have started putting in my email details, I may have started doing a few authentication items, but within that couple of minutes those applications appeared and then they vanished. And this will be the case with all devices that are currently out in the wild, potentially vulnerable to this CVE, as long as they're using a MAPI, as long as they have the Play Store set to allow list, it's going to be gone automatically. Furthermore, we'll bring up a point a little bit further down here also, where Bastian says MDM won't be able to detect malicious or unwanted apps. Obviously not the case. Google Play Protect, in partnership with folks like Lookout, monitor and maintain applications and good standing of a device all day, every day. So if anything was installed that is deemed malicious by Google Play Protect, it would have been removed automatically. Also, potentially faster than what you saw then, potentially not, depends on how quickly it scans it all through. But there are a couple of means to ensure that this vulnerability doesn't impact the organization and the mobile estate in general, that make it a little less concerning necessarily than this blog post this suggests, right? I'm not saying it's not a valid concern. As I said earlier, Play EMM API-based legacy EMMs that haven't migrated over to a MAPI just yet, that's obviously going to be a consistent concern, as would any AOSP or third-party work profile solutions that come from the wider community or other lockdown implementations. But as it stands, for the most part, this isn't going to be a drastic concern, and I didn't want to leave this blog post as the only source of truth for this vulnerability, and hopefully this demo gave a little more context to the vulnerability and the impact it can potentially have on organizations. So I'm going to do a bit of a write-up on this as well, but here's the video in the meantime, and if you've got any questions or concerns, please reach out.